Hi, my name is Chris, and this is Badger Does It. Welcome to my basement bathroom. Believe it or not, this bright yellow paint isn't the reason we're down here. Before I tackle anything else, I need to get a bathroom exhaust fan. As far as I know, this bathroom is original to the house, and I don't think it's ever had an exhaust fan. And you can tell because you can see some discoloration and mold. It should be an easy project. All you really need is electricity and a way for the ducting to get outside the house. Unfortunately, this bathroom is in the middle of the basement floor plan, so routing the ducting outside might be difficult, although I have some ideas, but I won't know until I get some holes cut into the ceiling. Electric is going to be tapped off here. Need to expand the switches. Here's what we're installing today. Panasonic Whisper. Online, these are well reviewed, a lot of people raving about them, and hopefully it'll do the job. Requires a 4-inch duct and of course electricity. Here's the patient for today. As you can see, the bathroom is in the middle of the basement floor plan. I know that the joists in the house run north to south. I'm hoping to be able to run the ducting south through the front of the house because that is the shortest run and it goes with the joist.
Seems like a solid plan.
To get this party started, I needed to start making some holes in the sheetrock. The fan comes with a cardboard template to mark out the outline for the exhaust housing, which is pretty convenient. I used my reciprocating saw, but you could also use a sheetrock saw, which might also be a little less messy. And here I got my first look to see if my plan will work to route my exhaust through the front of the house. So far, it looks promising. Let's take a look at the Panasonic WhisperMighty. I decided to go with this unit because of the positive reviews that I've read everywhere. It's rated at 90 CFM, which should be overkill for such a small bathroom, but I wanted to have enough air movement to make up for the length of the ducting. The reviews also state that it is one of the quieter units on the market, and so far seems to be well built. At this point, the instructions have me removing 2 screws holding the blower motor in and unclipping the power cord from the housing. The instructions don't mention this, but I found that I also had to remove the power and blower attachments to be able to mount this exhaust housing using the template provided. Time for some more cutting. I am opening up an access panel in the sheetrock so that I can route the ROMEX electrical wire from the switch panel to the exhaust fan. After cutting the panel, I use my drill with a 3/4 inch bit so that I can run the wires. So we're in my son's closet right now, which is directly in the path where we want to go. So this should be the exterior wall. So what I need to do is I need to cut an access panel up here so that I can get through, drill a pilot hole so that I can get the big old saw to drill in the brick to be able to route this exhaust. Out comes the oscillating saw again to make an access panel to verify that this plan will work. Once inside, I move away the insulation, exposing the OSB that the exterior brick is up against. With a 3/4 inch drill, I make an opening to expose enough of the brick for my pilot hole. New tool time. Hammer drill. Got the access point open. Found the brick wall. Now what I need to do is drill a pilot hole from the inside out so that I can find out exactly where I want to put the big hole. Don't want to be messing around with that. Since this project involves drilling straight through an exterior brick wall, none of my normal tools were going to cut it. Literally. So I had to rent a Hilti core drill for the job. This thing is a water-cooled beast and built to handle thick masonry. It comes with a 5-inch diamond core bit, which will be plenty big enough to fit the 4-inch ducting for the exhaust fan. I start by unboxing the drill, inspecting the bit, and making sure the arbor and threads are clean before locking it into place. I've got the biggest drill I've ever seen in my possession. I've got 6 inches of brick to go through. There's only one thing left for a guy to do.
We drill.
I have a feeling I'm going to be referencing the 1989 cinematic masterpiece Armageddon at least a few times during this project. There's a chance that my rental drill was missing some items because I couldn't find a way to keep the drill on track. I had to badger up this 2x4 balance method. This definitely isn't a recommendation, but I made it work. Once I got it in a groove, the drill really started to put in the work. I had to pause and cover my outlet though because of all the muddy water that this thing threw off.
Never miss the depth that I have aimed for.
I'm using a 3/4 inch drill bit to make a series of holes all the way around the outline of where the vent duct will pass through the OSB. This method takes a little longer, but it gives me a cleaner cut and helps guide the next step. Once I've got my circle of holes complete, I head back inside using my oscillating saw. I carefully connect those holes and cut out the circular opening. The key here is to take your time. Let the tool do the work. After the cut is complete, I grab a chisel and gently tap around the edges to knock out the OSB plug. It's always satisfying when that piece finally gives way and you can see straight through to the other side. It's time to mount the exterior vent. I start by holding the vent in position and marking the screw holes with a pencil. This ensures everything lines up perfectly before I start drilling into the brick. I use the grout line as a guide to keep it level. Next, I grab my hammer drill and a 1/4 inch masonry bit, then drill out the 4 holes for the brick fasteners. You want to keep steady pressure and let the drill do the work. Don't force it. Once all 4 holes are set, I tap in the plastic anchors with a hammer until they sit flush. Next, I break out some clear caulk and apply a healthy amount behind where the vent will be placed. I am using Lexel clear caulking for this application. It's flexible, weatherproof, and perfect for brick. I then drive in the 4 mounting screws to secure the vent tight against the wall. I apply a bead of caulk around the exterior of the vent and smooth the bead out with my finger for a clean finish. And now the exterior vent is fully mounted, sealed, and ready for airflow. Man, that drill was heavy. That really took a lot out of me. Now that I've got the vent installed, it's time to run some ducting. I'm going to go with the insulated ducting. Where I live, we get snow, so I want to make sure that the vent pipe does not accumulate condensation as I've got hot shower going to the cold outside. Now that the vent is mounted, it's time to connect the insulated ducting. I start by unboxing the dent and measuring out the length I'll need to reach from the exterior vent to the fan location inside. Using a duct knife and wire cutters, I trim it to size. Next, I slide one end of the duct over the vent collar and secure it with a duct clamp. Once that's tightened down, I pull the insulation back over the connection to keep everything sealed and efficient. Unfortunately, I have learned that it is really hard to film in the ceiling, so you're going to have to use the power of imagination a bit on this section. To get the other end of the duct up to the fan opening, I use a crowbar to hook it and gently pull it forward through the ceiling cavity. It's a bit of a reach, but it saves me from having to cut another access panel. When I told my son we're putting the exhaust fan into his bathroom, walked through Home Depot to take a look at him. Of course, he was instantly drawn to the RGB light inside the ceiling fan. So I had to make a compromise. Said, how about we get the better reviewed exhaust fan and I'll figure out a way to get some RGB into your bathroom. The walls were opened up. Now's the time to run any additional electric. Going with these Halo. These are rated for wet, so I can put one right above the shower. So I'm going to do 1 6-inch above the shower and then 2 4-inch in the rest of the bathroom. If you're going to be putting in recessed lighting, then these drywall bits are a must. There's no way that I can make these clean circles without them. I now have them for both 4-inch and 6-inch lights, and I'm using them both here. So I was really hoping to tap off the power right here at this switch. But unfortunately, it's at the end of the run. So it looks like we're going to be going off this GFI, and to be able to make another hole like we did over here above the switch, I'm going to make one above this GFI. Since I can't tap off the power from the switch, I need a way to get a hot wire to the switch box so that I can then power the exhaust and the recessed lighting. I've made sure that the power is off so that I don't revisit my mishap in my garage workbench video. This process is going to work just like the first access panel, with cuts from the oscillating tool followed by drilling a 3/4 inch hole in the top plate of the wall. Yes, I've become well aware that my tongue has a habit of wandering around when I'm doing projects. Something fun I learned about myself since filming these videos. Sometimes you find Easter eggs when you tear into your walls, like this random copper pipe hanging out in the ceiling. Nothing seems to be dripping, so I won't worry too much about it. As I am running the ROMEX cables from the power back to the switch box and eventually back to the fan and exhaust, I'll make the pitch for you to like and subscribe to the channel. I think I am starting to get slightly better at making these videos, and every like and subscribe helps strengthen my resolve to continue to document my projects. Thanks. I'm using a few techniques on this part. I've run my fish tape through, and I am taping multiple strands of ROMEX with painter's tape and guiding it where it needs to go. Now I'm moving on to buttoning up the electrical side of this project. I start by marking the location for the larger outlet box that will hold my switches. Since this setup will control the existing ugly light, the exhaust fan, and the new RGB lights, I need extra space to keep the wiring clean and organized. Using my oscillating saw, I carefully cut out the opening, following my pencil lines to keep the edges straight. Once the drywall section is out, I slide in the old work box, tighten the tabs, and make sure it's snug and flush against the wall. With the box secure, I start wiring the switches. I make sure all connections are tight, check my grounds, and make sure everything is neat inside the box so it's easy to troubleshoot later if needed. I am not finishing the switch install until I do a functions check later. Next, I prep the exhaust fan for electric. I pop off the metal tab for the ROMEX and run the wire through a 1/2 inch plastic wire protector. I learned after this one that it is much easier to put the wire protector into the metal electrical box and then push the wire through. Wiring it up is super easy. Just match the black wire to the black wire, the white to the white, and then the bare grounds together using wire nuts. Once all the wires are secured with wire nuts, I button up the electrical box and place it into the ceiling until I am ready to mount the fan later. Now it's time to wire up the recessed Halo RGB lights. One thing I love about these is how easy they are to chain together. One light has removable metal knockouts on both sides of the junction box, so you can run your ROMEX straight through using a wire protector. Inside the box, the push-fit connectors make wiring simple. No wire nuts, no twisting, no frustration. Just strip your wires, push them in, and you're done. Once the wiring is complete, I let the junction box rest right on top of the drywall, then snap each light into place using the spring clips. They lock in tight, sit flush, and look super clean against the ceiling. Well, assuming I did all of my wiring correct, my last step is to wire up the GFI outlet, and that will power both the exhaust and the recessed lights. The lights are wired up, the fan's wired up. Before we go any further, I want to make sure to turn on the power and see where we're sitting. All right, let's see what happens. All right, I don't hear any screaming or explosions. That's a good first step. Let's see what it looks like. Hey, all right, that's one. All right, those lights are working.
Victory is mine!
So I'm just gonna assume that this last one's gonna work for the fan. Now it's time to install the Panasonic fan. I start by connecting the insulated ducting to the fan's funnel using a hose clamp. Once it's tightened down, I seal the insulation around the joint with aluminum duct tape to keep everything airtight and prevent condensation. Next, I take the fan housing and slide it up through the drywall opening, making sure it is lined up flush with the ceiling. I secure it to the nearby joist using 1.5-inch wood screws. Keeping the fan housing tight and level here will make everything else line up perfectly later. With the housing in place, I attach the electrical box to the side, then connect the ducting to the fan outlet. Once that's secure, I move on to installing the blower assembly itself. I connect the power cord, position the blower inside the housing, and then lock it in with the 2 push tabs. Finally, I secure it with a pair of screws to keep everything solid and vibration free.
Well, there she is. Let's see what happens.
Now it's time to button everything up. I start by snapping the fan cover into place using the spring clips that come with the unit. It's a simple press fit, and once those springs grab, the cover sits clean and flush against the ceiling. Nice and professional looking. Next, I head down to the switches. I attach each switch to the outlet box, tightening the screws just enough to keep them straight and snug. Once they're secure, I pop on the switch plate cover for a clean finish. I do the same with the GFI outlet, sliding it into the box, securing it, and finishing it off with a matching cover plate. The last step is patching up the drywall I opened up earlier for access. I start by cutting 2 pieces of 3/4-inch furring strip, each about 2 inches longer than the opening. These will act as backing supports behind the drywall patch. I slide each strip into place behind the existing sheetrock and secure them with drywall screws, making sure there's enough overlap for the patch to grab onto. Next, I take the original drywall section I removed earlier, fit it back into the opening, and attach it to the furring strips using more drywall screws. I do the same with the panel I cut above the GFI outlet and apply tape and mud to seal them up. And now for the final reveal.
This project is done. The fan does a great job of getting the steam out of the bathroom, so should cut out all the mildew problems that we were having in the past. It was a little nerve-wracking drilling the hole through my brick exterior, and that drill was a beast. But really, I had more trouble trying to route wires in here than I did with drilling that exterior hole. But this bathroom is still in desperate need for a full refresh, so be looking for that video in the near future. But overall, everything works as it should, and I'm really excited. I know my son is. So remember, if I can do this, so can you. Until next time, Badger out.